Hi, I'm Gareth Green, and in this video we're going to take a huge topic. How did Liszt compose? Well, in a way, it's difficult to say, isn't it? Because we can't really completely get inside Liszt's mind. But what is wonderful about looking at real music is that you can start to unpack it and begin to see hallmarks of style, particular approaches, particular things that make Liszt distinctive from other people who are writing at the same time. And there's a huge amount to learn from all this about getting inside the mind of the composer, which I've always found absolutely fascinating, doing a bit of analysis and maybe picking up some ideas for our own writing. And we're going to have a look at this through the window of just the opening of one of Liszt's really big pieces for piano. It's the Sonata in B minor from 1854. It's a huge piece, so we're not going to try and tackle all of it. Much better to take a few bars and just go into a bit more depth on what's going on. So without any further ado, I'm going to play you the introductory bars from his Sonata. So this is how it goes. Now, doesn't that set a fantastic sense of expectation? It's almost something that could form part of a film score, isn't it? You're kind of waiting for something to happen. You're not quite sure what it is, but it is setting the scene for this allegro energico that follows, that immediately does this. Much more dramatic music. So these opening bars are just setting the scene for that. So a composer of contrast is one thing we can see. We've got lento assai, piano, sottovoce, tiny little crescendos and diminuendos, and then suddenly dramatic change of tempo, allegro energico, change of time signature to 2/2, and we've got a whole new kind of thing happening with the rhythm and with the power of the music, forte dynamic, accents, articulation, completely distinct from these opening bars. Okay, let's notice one or two other things about the opening. We said this was Liszt's Sonata in B minor. Now, I don't know about you, if I was going to write a sonata in B minor, I'd probably think about starting with a chord of B minor. So there's a B minor chord, so I'm going to write my sonata in B minor, so maybe I'm going to have a little introduction, and then I'm going to write a tune in B minor. Dominant seventh chord, back to the tonic chord. Oh, that's great, isn't it? I've got my little sonata in B minor on the go, and it's all going fine so far, isn't it? Actually, Liszt is much more able than that. And he's also kicking away some of the conventions that might have generated the sort of thing I'd done. So why on earth does he start on the note G? Well, what's G in the key of B minor? Well, it's the 6th degree of the scale, the submedian. So if you're trying to establish the key of B minor, why on earth would you start on the submedian, the 6th degree of the scale? Well, it's perfectly evident when you listen to the opening bars of this that Liszt really isn't bothered about trying to establish the key of B minor at all, is he? So we get these Gs, and we get them 3 times before anything else happens. There's no harmony associated with that. It's just these octave Gs. So we don't really have a reference. Is that G major, G minor? Is it something else? We don't really know. After the 3rd G, we then have this interesting scale that works its way down, F natural. Well, what's that got to do with B minor? Absolutely nothing. We then have E flat. What's that got to do with B minor? Even less. Then we go on to D, and then we go to C, and then we go B flat, and then we go A flat. So what on earth is this scale? Until that point, we might think, oh, actually, I'm beginning to recognize this scale. It sounds like G melodic minor descending. And then we're thinking, oh, you know, for some reason, Liszt has decided to start this piece of music in G minor. Okay, so we've had G, the tonic, and then we've come down a scale of G minor, T, T, T. Oh, got it. He doesn't quite do that, does he? Because you'll notice at the end of this bar, that's not an A natural, it's an A flat. So just as we're beginning to kind of tune into, are we in G minor? We get A flat. So we come down this scale, A flat. Now that just throws you off the center bit, doesn't it? And then you start thinking, well, B flat, A flat, could that be something to do with C minor, you know? So G, F, E, D, C, that could be a C minor scale. Then B flat, A flat, G, F, E flat, D, C. Oh, well, okay, could be C minor, couldn't it? And maybe these Gs that we've been chiming away on are the dominant of C minor. So that's a possibility, isn't it? Slightly strange to finish on A flat at the end of the third bar, but who knows? So maybe it's that. You see, the point is this. He's being ambiguous, isn't he? He's certainly not in the key of B minor, and it's certainly not worrying him about being in B minor at the beginning of his sonata. But now we've got this kind of, well, it's not atonal music. It's not without a key, but is it G minor? Is it C minor? Who knows? Well, we'll have to move on, won't we, to see what happens next. Well, what does happen next? We go back to those Gs that we had in the first bar. So here it comes again. And we're listening to these Gs in the light of what we've just heard, thinking, is that the tonic of G minor? Is it the dominant of C minor? Okay, well, we had this scale run before, so here it comes again. We're going to get the scale run again. But this time, that's interesting. You notice here, we've got F sharp. Last time we had F natural, didn't we? So we were sort of beginning to think, well, is this lot something to do with C minor? Now we've got this F sharp. We're thinking, well, that's a bit strange. So what's going on now? Well, if we get G, and then we have F sharp, E flat, D. Oh, this is starting to sound like a G minor scale, G harmonic minor. G, F sharp, E flat, D, C, B flat, A, G. In which case then the G could be the tonic of a G minor scale. Is that what's going on? Well, let's have a little look. So if we go from this point again, we've got the Gs, F sharp, E flat, D, that's all good. C sharp, C sharp's got nothing to do with G minor, is it? So that's thrown us off the scent again, isn't it? Then B flat, A. So we're still none the wiser. And then what does he do next at the end of these introductory bars? Brings us back to these Gs again. And we're still none the wiser. Is it the submediate of B minor? Is it the dominant of C minor? Is it the tonic of G minor? Who knows? But it's interesting, he uses these Gs as a kind of anchor point, doesn't he? So we keep coming back to those as an anchor point of the introduction. And we've got something that you can't say is atonal, but certainly it's a little bit confused in its tonality. Okay, that really piles on the mystery of the opening, doesn't it? Where we are with keys. Sort of vaguely suggesting the odd key, but not really committing ourselves to anything. What else do we notice about this in terms of setting an atmosphere? Well, we've mentioned the lento tempo. The first bar, starting with a rest, then having a very sort of quiet sotto voce note, followed by another rest, repeating the same note, followed by a rest, repeating the same note. Melodically, we're not going anywhere, are we? We're just repeating the G. But because we've got G in 3 octaves, it's kind of lower half of the keyboard, but quite widely spaced. And then these articulations that just make it sound a little bit sinister. all low in the keyboard. So then when we have the scale run, all this is in octaves, all quite low. Back to the Gs, octaves, all quite low again, and then back to the Gs. So we can see how he structured it around the repeated Gs. We can see the kind of dark, low textures. We can see that melodically, what's going on is the scale run. But in terms of the Gs, well, we've just got G, 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 G running all the way through those introductory bars. If you have that, you might think, well, is the G a pedal point? Well, it's a slightly strange one, isn't it, if it is, because a submediant pedal point, sometimes you might most commonly expect to have a dominant pedal point or possibly a tonic pedal point, but a submediant pedal point. Bit unusual, isn't it? And then just the way those two scales are slightly different from each other is a bit unnerving, isn't it? Because then we don't really know where we're going. So, okay, well, there's still time for Liszt to redeem himself, isn't there? Because he can get to the end of his introduction and he can still have these Gs if he's determined to play G in the key of B minor. And having done that, well, he could then go F sharp and then B minor, and then we'd all think, oh yeah, I get it. He's just holding us in suspense with all these submediants, and then we're going to settle into B minor. Marvelous. Does he do that? So we go into the Allegro Energico, much faster. We've got the 2-2, all the rest of it, and we're sticking with these Gs. Now, there's a danger in this compositionally, isn't it? You know, if you set about writing a piece and you think, now, what's my big idea for this piece? I know, I'll just keep playing G over and over again. That'll be a great piece, won't it? Well, it doesn't sound like the recipe for a great piece, does it? But isn't it amazing how Liszt gets away with it? And this time, instead of just having the octaves, he now leaps the octaves. So we've got this leap of the octave and then this one up there. And by making it a semiquaver or a 16th note, ba-da, and then ba-da, it's suddenly alive and very dramatic, isn't it? Then what does he do? Still in octaves, A sharp. Okay, that's interesting. B, D. Now, this is the first time we can legitimately start to think in B minor, isn't it? Because A sharp is the leading note of B minor, going on to the tonic of B minor, going on to D, which is the third of the chord of B minor. So this is the nearest element of hope of reaching B minor we've had so far. But it's not terribly explicit. He hasn't kind of gone 5-1 in B minor, has he? So he's still in octaves. Interesting thing that, you know, the octaves are having the same notes 4 octaves apart is quite dramatic and spacious, but it also means that it doesn't complete chords. So we're not really entirely sure what's going on. Nevertheless, something melodic is starting to happen, isn't it? You know, with this and the. Now, what happens next? So that's a bit of a melodic development, so that's good. But it's also spinning out a chord. C sharp, A sharp, G, E. Well, that chord is a diminished seventh. And I have to say, one of the hallmarks of Liszt style is his use of the diminished seventh chord. He absolutely loves using the diminished seventh chord. I'm thinking about another piece by him, B-A-C-H, that he wrote for the organ, you know, diminished seventh, diminished seventh, diminished seventh, diminished seventh, you know, one diminished seventh after another. He doesn't take a diminished seventh and then resolve it to the tonic chord, which is what you normally do. He just says, love the diminished seventh, we'll have a diminished seventh here, then we'll have a different one, then a different one, then a different one, and it's part of the drama. But this at least is a diminished seventh in the key of B minor. How do I know that? Because we have a diminished seventh built on chord 7. So chord 7 in B minor is A sharp, C sharp, E, and then you put another minor third on the top of it, which is G, and that's what we're looking at here. C sharp, A sharp, G, E. So you think, well, thank goodness. He's finally getting to the point by the time we get here where we're thinking, right, okay, B minor is the key. Lovely. So then he goes on and he does this bit. D sharp, E, F sharp, A. And then you're suddenly thinking, oh, that doesn't sound quite so much like B minor. D sharp certainly doesn't sound like B minor, does it? So what's going on there? And then A natural is the note that he holds on to for the longest time, puts an accent on it. Well, A natural, you might expect A sharp to be leading you back to B, but this is A natural. Can be the descending melodic minor, I suppose, but you know, it's a little bit vague, isn't it? And that D sharp sort of unnerves us a bit because that's nothing to do with B minor, sort of maybe suggesting E minor. Well, what does he do after that long A? He comes down this chord. And what's that? Well, again, it's a diminished seventh in the key of B minor. So the drama continues, but now we're getting into these diminished sevenths that Liszt loves so much. But notice all these octaves still playing out. Then Liszt is not afraid of silence. I mean, it's briefer silence because the tempo is faster, but he's just having a little rest. And then we're going to get going with something new. But this time we've got a statement in the left hand, and we've finally got some chords in the right hand. Hallelujah. Okay, now what's all this about? That's a lovely little motif in the left hand, isn't it? That sort of run up to the D. Okay, very dramatic little figure again. Marcato, fast start, then repeated notes again. You know, we had all those repeated G's at the beginning. Now we've got repeated D's. And then we've got a bit of chromatic writing, A sharp, E sharp, E natural. And you look at that and you think, I suppose it could be in B minor. A sharp, B, C sharp, D. Oh good, we're in B minor. T, D, T. And then E sharp. What's that got to do with it? Slight off-putter. But there's a sort of emerging sense of B minor, isn't there? When we look at the right-hand chords, well, this with a D in the bass, that's a B minor first inversion, going to a B minor second inversion at the end of the bar. Then as we go into the bottom line, okay, well, we've got this chord at the beginning, which is a seventh chord, isn't it? So in the key of B minor, that's a 4-7 chord. So you think, oh yeah, that's a nice chord, 4-7. But then it starts to evolve. The B falls to an A sharp. And then the D at the top falls to a C sharp. So by the time we get to this chord, we're back with our diminished seventh in B minor again. So you see how the tonality has been so ambiguous, but the diminished seventh in the home key of B minor is starting to feature heavily. Now, when we look at the next phrase, when we look at this seems to be sequential with the previous phrase, doesn't it? So we've got the same sort of thing going on here, but this time okay, so what's all that about? Well, the B sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E is sort of pulling us away a little bit from B minor, but as soon as we get this chord, we know that we're listening again to the diminished seventh chord in B minor. And then we've still got the diminished seventh chord going in the right hand, although it's interesting, this contradiction in the left hand of A natural. It's quite intense because we've got A sharp in the right hand, A natural in the left hand simultaneously, so that's a false relation, but it's still relating to that diminished seventh chord. And then we have another one where, of course, this bar is a bit like this one, isn't it? Where we start on this chord, it's kind of a seventh chord again, isn't it? And then there's a semitone movement in the middle, and then another semitone movement at the top. And now we're left with this chord, which actually is a diminished seventh chord in the key of E, whether it's E major or E minor. So there we are. All we've done is to look at the first page of this huge thing, 30 odd pages long, of Liszt's B minor sonata. By the end of the first page, we're just beginning to get the idea that, yes, it really is a sonata in B minor. Are we really hearing that from the tonic chord of B minor? Well, not really. I mean, This was a tonic called a B minor. And there was a sort of bit of a tonic focus there for a brief moment, but we're really getting it from the prevalence of the diminished sevenths, that we saw in these sort of corners and coming back there, didn't we? And kind of arriving at the cadence there and here again and here again. And then we're just discovering a diminished seventh in a different key by the end of the page. So that's how the tonality emerges. We've also seen these dark low textures. We've seen this extreme range of dynamics, of articulation, of tempi. We've seen the use of silence. We've seen this doubling of octaves and so on. The use of accents, double dotted rhythms, just to keep the drama high. Articulations like these, staccatos, accents like that. All these octaves going on, this low, dark, grumpy tune in the left hand, forte, marcato, just add to it a crescendo coming here just to kind of emphasize the power of the moment. Deep, dark theme. These are all things that are happening in Liszt style, and that's just the first page. So I hope that's a little taster of insight into, well, what is Liszt up to when he's composing? Well, if you've enjoyed this video, we've got many other videos on the channel covering these composer insights, as we've called them, which you may be interested in. Or you might want to go to www.mmcourses.co.uk, where you can access all of our online courses, plenty of courses to look at there, and where you might just want to click on Maestros on the homepage and discover what it is to join our Maestros program, a wonderful international community of musicians, all sorts of perks, including discounts on our courses, and mainly the ability to meet together as a group once a month for our live streams, where there's in-depth teaching and there's one-to-one feedback on anything you want to submit, questions, compositions, arrangements, performances recorded, whatever you want to do, and we can share them with the group, learn from each other, support each other. A wonderful way of meeting through the Maestros group.